Have you ever felt like you're playing a game, but no one ever handed you the rule book? You spend your life trying to figure out what women want, chasing love, seeking validation, trying to find that one great happiness you've been promised, only to end up feeling confused, used, or completely heartbroken. You follow all the advice society gives you, but somehow, you still end up on the losing side of the equation. What if I told you that the rule book does exist, but it's not what you think? It's not pretty, it's not romantic, and it's certainly not fair. Nearly 200 years ago, long before dating apps and social media, a philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer laid out the raw, unfiltered truth about the dynamics between men and women. He wrote about the very nature of attraction and love with a brutal honesty that most people, even today, refuse to look at directly. But understanding these truths is the difference between spending your life in confusion and finally taking back control of your own destiny. So, I need you to pay close attention. Because what we're about to break down isn't just some controversial dating theory. For many men, this is the missing piece of the puzzle, the key they've been searching for their entire lives. Schopenhauer wasn't a man who believed in fairy tales. He was a stone-cold realist. And when he looked at love, he didn't see a magical, spiritual bond or some kind of cosmic destiny. He saw a biological mechanism, a powerful, ruthless illusion engineered by nature for one, and only one, primary purpose: the continuation of the species. Reproduction. Here's the first uncomfortable truth you have to grasp. That feeling, that electrifying pull you feel towards a woman, that obsessive desire that consumes your thoughts, the overwhelming conviction that she is the one, that your life won't be complete without her. According to Schopenhauer, that's not your soul connecting with hers. That's your biology doing calculus at lightning speed. Your subconscious mind is running a series of complex calculations, assessing her health, her fertility, her genetic compatibility, all the subtle cues that signal she would be a good mother for your potential offspring. It feels like magic, but it's an ancient program running in your DNA. And here's the thing: women's attraction works the very same way. It's the same biological program, just running with a different set of priorities. While your biology might be scanning for youth and fertility, hers is scanning for survival, security, status, and protection. Schopenhauer famously wrote, "The ultimate aim of all love affairs is more important than all other aims in a man's life, and therefore is quite worthy of the profound seriousness with which everyone pursues it." But he wasn't being romantic. He was describing a trap. He saw this intense emotion as a fleeting chemical high that nature gives you to get the job done. Once that biological purpose is fulfilled, or seems to be fulfilled, that high begins to fade. Think about it logically for a second. How many stories have you heard of men who have completely upended their lives for a woman, changed their careers, moved across the country, alienated their friends, only to have her walk away months later as if he meant nothing? How many marriages that start with so much fire and passion slowly fizzle out into cold, resentful partnerships once the initial spark is gone? Schopenhauer would say this isn't a tragic coincidence. It's the system working exactly as designed. The intense feeling of in love isn't meant to last forever. Its job is to bring two people together, and once that's done, nature's interest wanes. This leads us to the next, even tougher pill to swallow. Women, by and large, do not choose partners based on principles of fairness, loyalty, or even pure logic. They are guided by an ancient selection protocol that is hardwired into their very being. A program that instinctively seeks out the man with the highest status, the most security, and the best genetic package available to them. A man's kindness, his sacrifices, his unwavering devotion. These things are nice, but they mean almost nothing if he can't first signal strength and value in these key areas. Schopenhauer saw this with piercing clarity. He argued that women are far more often guided by their instincts and emotions than by detached reason. Now, before you dismiss this as simple misogyny, take a step back and look at the world around you with objective eyes. Don't look at what people say. Look at what they do. Look at the data from dating apps, which consistently shows that the vast majority of women, something like 80%, focus their attention on the top 20% of men. These are the men who, for one reason or another, project the highest levels of status, confidence, and desirability. Look at the divorce courts, where a man's commitment and years of providing are often rewarded with financial devastation and alienation from his children. Look through history, where powerful kings and emperors risked their entire empires for the affection of a mistress who would later betray him for a man she perceived as having even greater power. The technology changes, the clothes change, but the fundamental pattern does not, because the underlying biology doesn't change. Most men operate under a dangerous delusion. They believe that love is a transaction of equals, that if they are just good enough, if they sacrifice enough, if they care enough and prove their worth through their actions, they will be rewarded with unconditional love and loyalty. But Schopenhauer issued a stark warning against this way of thinking. He believed that to be truly desired, a man must not just be good, he must be clever. He must understand the game. Women don't fall in love with niceness. They are instinctively drawn to strength. And I'm not just talking about physical strength. I'm talking about social strength, financial strength, and most importantly, psychological and emotional strength. This is the real reason the good guy so often finishes last. It's not because he's an unworthy person. It's because he fundamentally misunderstands the nature of attraction. He operates as if love is something to be earned through service and appeasement. He puts her on a pedestal and serves her, hoping she will then choose him. But a woman's biology is instinctively drawn to the man who doesn't need to serve, the man who is already the prize. Have you ever noticed that strange shift in a relationship? The moment a woman feels she has completely secured a man, the moment he stops being a challenge, her interest often begins to wane. The dynamic flips. Suddenly, he's the one chasing, and she's the one who seems distant. Schopenhauer called this the tragedy of possession. The real thrill for our biology isn't in having something, it's in the process of acquiring it. It's the conquest. Once the conquest is complete and the man makes her the absolute center of his universe, his perceived value plummets. His mission is over. Her biological programming starts looking for the next challenge. This is precisely why men who cling too tightly, who are too available, who sacrifice their own purpose for her, inevitably end up watching her walk away. But here is the critical twist. The part that changes everything. This isn't the woman's fault. It's not some conscious, malicious plan on her part. It's nature's programming. It's instinct. And the man who finally understands this, he stops getting angry. He stops blaming women. He starts to strategize. The ultimate lesson from Schopenhauer isn't to hate women or to resent them. It's to see them, and the world, clearly. It's to finally accept that love isn't a Disney fantasy. It's a biological and social negotiation. And in any negotiation, The party that negotiates from a position of weakness is guaranteed to lose every single time. But everything we've talked about so far is just scratching the surface. This is just the foundational knowledge, because the next truth we have to explore is even darker. It explains exactly why the modern man feels like he's being systematically outmaneuvered in every aspect of life. And more importantly, how you can begin to flip the entire script. So stick with me, Matu. Because what's coming next is the point where most men have that shocking realization that they've been sold a lie their entire lives. Schopenhauer saw what many men today are only beginning to suspect. The fundamental rules of attraction aren't fair. They aren't always logical, and they are definitely not set up in your favor by default. While our modern culture constantly preaches a message of absolute equality between the sexes, our biology, the ancient operating system running in the background, operates on a completely different set of laws. And the man who ignores these biological laws, who pretends they don't exist because they make him uncomfortable, is stepping onto the playing field having already lost. So, let's get into the brutal reality of it. In the great negotiation of relationships, women begin with a form of leverage that most men simply don't have. It's not because they are smarter or more cunning, but because nature itself designed them to be the primary selectors in the mating process. Think about it. From the moment a woman enters her late teens, her value in the sexual marketplace typically peaks. Her youth and beauty are a form of biological currency, a direct signal of fertility and health. A man's value, on the other hand, is almost never inherent. It has to be built, forged through years of struggle, achievement, and overcoming adversity. His value is tied to his competence, his status, his resources, and his resilience. A woman is often seen as being born with value, while a man must become a man of value. This is a profound asymmetry that defines the entire dynamic. Schopenhauer addressed this in a way that sounds incredibly harsh to our modern ears, but we need to look at the observation behind the language. He wrote, "Women are suited to being the nurses and teachers of our childhood by the very fact that they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted." Now, let's pause here. Your initial reaction might be to call this outrageous misogyny and click away. But he wasn't simply throwing an insult. He was highlighting what he saw as an evolutionary truth about focus. He believed a woman's psychology was perfectly adapted for managing the immediate environment, the home, the children, the intricate social dynamics of a small community. This required a focus on the present moment, on emotion, on intuition. A man's role, historically, was to deal with external, long-term threats, hunting, warfare, building, which required a different kind of detached, long-range thinking. He wasn't saying one was better, but that they were different and designed for different purposes. The danger is that the modern world has taken this dynamic and thrown it into chaos. The average man today finds himself drowning in a sea of contradictions. Society tells him to be more open, more emotionally vulnerable. But he observes that the women he desires still flock to men who project unshakable, dominant confidence. He is shamed for desiring what is seen as traditional masculinity. Yet he sees that same unapologetic strength being rewarded time and time again in the real world of dating. He is told to be a good provider, to work himself to exhaustion for his family. Yet he lives in a system that often rewards his sacrifice with brutal divorce proceedings and the risk of financial ruin. Schopenhauer's words from 2 centuries ago echo with an eerie relevance. He wrote again, "Women are directly fitted for acting as the nurses and teachers of our early childhood by the fact that they are themselves childish, frivolous, and short-sighted. In a word, they are big children all their lives. He saw them as masters of the immediate, the present, the emotional. And here's where it gets truly dangerous in the modern age. Modern women haven't just accepted this power. The system has encouraged them to amplify and, in some cases, weaponize it. Social media, in particular, has transformed human attention into a global economy. And in this new economy, the average man has become the unpaid, voluntary laborer. He scrolls through feeds, dropping likes, comments, and fire emojis. He simps, orbiting women who will never give him the time of day, competing with thousands of other men for a fleeting scrap of validation, a reply, a like back. He does this because he has been sold a lie. He's been conditioned to believe that if he just gives enough attention, enough devotion, it will one day be reciprocated. He believes that attention is a valid currency for earning affection. But Schopenhauer saw the trap long before Instagram or admire me culture ever existed. He suggested that, from a purely biological standpoint, women are almost incapable of the kind of unconditional love that men often dream of. This sounds incredibly bleak until you understand what he meant. He believed that female attraction and affection are fundamentally conditional. They are tied to a man's utility. A man isn't cherished simply for who he is in a vacuum. He is cherished for what he represents and what he provides. This provision isn't just money. It's security, status, excitement, protection, and genetic quality. The moment he ceases to provide these things, the moment his value appears to drop, the affection and respect begin to fade. This isn't cynicism. It's a cold observation of survival mechanics. Women are biologically hardwired to seek out the best possible deal for themselves and their potential offspring. It's an optimization strategy. If a man she is with begins to stagnate, if he lets himself go physically, if his ambition dies, she will feel a deep, instinctual resentment. If another man appears who represents a significantly better option, a higher level of status, security, or excitement, her instincts will pull her towards him. And modern society, with its emphasis on female empowerment and "you owe him nothing," will often cheer her on. Schopenhauer essentially saw two categories of men: those who serve and those who are served. The man in the beta mindset exhausts himself trying to prove his worthiness. He works tirelessly, hoping his sacrifice will be recognized. The man in the alpha mindset commands worth without effort. His value is self-evident. One man begs for loyalty. The other inspires an almost obsessive devotion. You see this play out in countless archetypes. Think of the classic office worker, sacrificing his health and his hobbies for a promotion, secretly hoping that the bigger paycheck will finally make his wife look at him with the respect he craves. Think of the guy at the gym who spends years transforming his body from scrawny to sculpted, only to find that while more women want him, it's often just for casual sex, not the committed relationship he was hoping for. He increased his sexual value, but not necessarily his relationship value. And of course, there's the simp, the man who spends his hard-earned money on gifts and expensive dates for a woman who ghosts him. The second a man with higher social status slides into her DMs. The devastating truth is that these men aren't just passive victims of a cruel system. In a very real sense, they are volunteers. They volunteer for their own pain because they refuse to learn the rules of the game. But Schopenhauer's philosophy is not a black pill of despair. It's a diagnosis. And once you have an accurate diagnosis, you can find the cure. The very first rule of survival in any environment is to see the world as it actually is, not as you wish it were. The man who truly thrives in the 21st century isn't the one clinging to outdated romantic ideals that never really existed. It's the one who masters the underlying reality of the game. And that brings us to the final critical truth. The game is rigged. It's absolutely rigged against the man who doesn't know he's playing it. But it's a game you can win, but only if you throw out the rulebook society gave you and start playing by the laws of nature. This is the point where most men check out, because the final truth is by far the hardest one to swallow. It forces you to stop looking outward and to finally look inward. It's not ultimately about women. It's about you. And the moment you truly face that, everything in your life will change. After accepting the harsh realities of the game, Schopenhauer uncovered another disturbing truth, one that modern psychology is only now beginning to fully understand. It's about how power is wielded in relationships. Men and women don't compete in the same way. Men often compete overtly, through physical contests, direct arguments, or clashes of logic. A woman's greatest weapon, however, is often invisible, wielded with surgical precision, and devastatingly effective. That weapon is emotional influence. While a man might fight you with his fists or with a spreadsheet of facts, a woman often wages war on the battlefield of perception itself. She doesn't just try to win the argument. She seeks to control the very reality of the situation. Think about it this way. When a man wants something, his default strategy is often to state it or demand it. When a woman wants something, her most effective strategy is often to make you believe it was your idea all along. Schopenhauer observed this difference in their natures. He believed women live more in the present moment than men do, a trait that gives them a near supernatural ability to read the subtleties of social interaction. They are masters of reading micro-expressions, shifts in vocal tone, and body language. A man often thinks he is just having a casual conversation, but for her, it can be a full-blown intelligence-gathering operation. She is constantly assessing, testing, and probing. This is where most modern men, who have been taught to take everything at face value, walk directly into a minefield. They honestly believe they are in control of their relationships because they might make more money or be physically stronger. They couldn't be more wrong. From the very first date and continuing all the way through a marriage, a woman will often guide the entire interaction through a series of subtle, unspoken tests. And most men fail these tests without ever even realizing they were being graded. There's the compliance test. She makes a last-minute request to see how quickly you'll drop your own plans to accommodate her. The man who instantly folds signals that his time and purpose are less important than hers. He fails. There's the frame test. She gets emotional or creates drama to see if you will abandon your position or your principles to soothe her. The man who caves in and apologizes for something he didn't do wrong proves his emotional frame is weaker than hers. He fails. There's the investment test. She pulls back her communication to see if you will panic and increase your effort. The man who starts double texting and desperately chasing proves he is more invested than she is. He fails. Schopenhauer warned of this directly, writing that women are instinctively crafty and have an innate talent for deception. Again, this isn't necessarily a judgment of moral character. It's an observation of an evolutionary survival strategy. For millennia, in a world where a woman couldn't rely on physical strength to guarantee her safety and the survival of her children, the ability to skillfully navigate and influence male psychology became her ultimate tool. The woman who couldn't do this, who couldn't test a man's strength and commitment, was less likely to pass on her genes. And this brings us to the most crucial psychological switch of all. Men walk blindly into this trap because they confuse a woman's attention for genuine, earned interest. But Schopenhauer revealed the cold reality. Women are most powerfully and instinctively drawn to men who do not need them. The absolute moment you make a woman the central purpose of your life is the very moment she will begin to lose all respect for you. This single idea explains almost everything that confuses men. It explains why the nice guy, who's always available and agreeable, gets relegated to the friend zone. It explains why so many marriages crumble after a man sacrifices all of his own hobbies, ambitions, and friendships to dedicate his life to his wife. It explains why women so often chase after men who seem distant or emotionally unavailable. It's not that women want to be treated poorly. It's that they are biologically hardwired to seek out and respect men of high value. And nothing destroys a man's perceived value faster than neediness. A man with a powerful purpose, a mission that he places above all else, including her, is signaling that he is a man of immense value. His lack of neediness is the ultimate proof. Every single interaction you have with a woman contains this unspoken power dynamic. The man who doesn't see it is playing defense, constantly reacting to her tests. She cries to see if she can escape accountability. She withholds affection to train him into compliance. She mentions other men or flirts with them to test his confidence and see if he'll get jealous and insecure. Schopenhauer called this the tyranny of the weak. Women leveraging their perceived vulnerability to control stronger men. The man who falls for this emotionally becomes her slave. But the man who recognizes it for what it is, a test of his strength, becomes unstoppable in her eyes. But here is where we find the hope. Here is where we find the path to true freedom. Schopenhauer's most liberating truth is this: the first step to breaking free from any prison is to first see the bars. Once you understand that female nature isn't a personal attack on you, but a biological program running on instinct, you can stop taking everything personally. You can stop being reactive. You stop begging for loyalty, and you start building a life that naturally inspires it. And this is the final, devastating revelation. The most dangerous lies in this world are not the ones women tell men. They are the ones that men tell themselves. Schopenhauer's true lesson wasn't ultimately about analyzing women. It was about the cold, unflinching reality of mastering yourself. This entire journey isn't about learning tricks to defeat women. It's about transcending the game entirely. The fatal error that modern men make is believing that their happiness, their validation, and their purpose can be found in a woman's approval. Schopenhauer saw right through this delusion. He wrote, "The happiness which we receive from ourselves is greater than that which we obtain from our surroundings. The men who truly thrive, the men who are magnetic, aren't those who conquer women. They are the men who have conquered themselves. They develop a mission for their life that is so all-consuming, so deeply and intrinsically rewarding, that a woman's attention becomes a wonderful bonus to their life, not the entire point of it." The great artists, inventors, empire builders, and warriors of history were not distracted by the chase. They were too busy building. This self-conquest rests on three pillars of unshakable masculinity. 1. Economic sovereignty. Schopenhauer called money human happiness in the abstract, not because of the luxury cars or fancy watches, but because of the freedom it buys. The man who controls his own finances controls his own destiny. He is nobody's slave. 2. Philosophical depth. Most men live their lives on autopilot, absorbing the opinions of the culture around them. The exceptional man does the opposite. He cultivates a mind so sharp it can cut through societal lies and mass delusion. He reads, he thinks, he questions everything. 3. Physical mastery. Your body is not just a tool to attract a mate. It is the physical vessel of your will. A weak body breeds a weak mind and a weak spirit. Discipline in your health and fitness radiates into every other area of your life. This is where Schopenhauer's wisdom becomes truly revolutionary. He famously said, "The safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy." This isn't pessimism. This is emotional armor. When a man stops desperately seeking love, approval, and fairness from the world, a strange thing happens. Those very things begin to flow to him. Why? Because he has removed himself from the desperate, needy masses. He has stopped being a player in the game and has become the prize. The dynamic between men and women is a biological theater that has been playing out for millennia. The man who wakes up to this reality stops blaming, stops complaining, and starts evolving. He doesn't resent female nature. He adapts to it with superior strategy. He builds a life so solid, so compelling, and so rich with purpose that a woman must either rise to meet his standards or be left behind. Schopenhauer's ultimate lesson is a choice. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. You can continue to be like other people, confused, chasing illusions, and playing a game you're destined to lose. Or you can step into your true power. The journey isn't about hating women. It's about loving the truth enough to rebuild yourself in its image. This is where your real life begins.